Passports are being touted as one option to allow people to travel this summer. And UK company VST Enterprises is also developing a digital health certificate that would see sports fans allowed back into stadia. It comes ahead of a blockbuster summer of sporting events, many of which were postponed from last year. Of course, the Olympics, absolutely huge as well. Postponed from last year due to the coronavirus outbreak, including the European Football Championships. I mentioned the Olympics and, of course, the Paralympic Games in Tokyo as well. I'm delighted to welcome to the channel, first time I've spoken to him, Sir Kenny Dalglish, who is the former Liverpool player and manager, a Celtic legend as well, Scotland, huge number of caps, and also Lewis James Davis, who is the CEO of VST Enterprises. Before we get to Sir Kenny, Lewis James, why don't you just tell us exactly what you're proposing? I can tell you now, around this desk, Jeff and I are avid sports fans. We both like going to sport as well. I'm a huge soccer and cricket fan. Am I going to get to these games to see a bit of sport this year?
Yeah, so what we're proposing is that we give you a V code on a V Health passport. So what you would do is go to a test centre, backed by government, and then they would upload your results to our system. So ours is the only passport in the world that allows you to have both your health pack and your sport at the same time.
Just one more with you before we get to Sir Kenny. In terms of the data that you'll be inputting there are some of us of a certain vintage who have had a vaccine jab already. Many have had two. Jeff and I are just about young enough to have only had the one at the moment as well. But in terms of the young sports fans, the 18-year-olds, the 25s, your 30s, they're not going to have jabs by the time we want to get back to sport as well. Are they going to be discriminated against, Lewis James?
No, so we're in a negative test alongside vaccines all the time. We don't push immunity passports. So we do have passport colours that you can learn more about on our website, but we do push negative tests. That will be allowed to everybody of all ages.
Let me get to Sir Kenny. Sir Kenny, I was speaking to you off air, and I last saw you score, dare I say it, 2 goals against my team back in 1986 when I was in Upton Park at the time as well. You are a legend as well. Are we going to get to see legends playing soccer this year, or do you fear we're just not going to get the atmosphere in the grounds?
No, well, we had a trial a few months ago where there was a couple of thousand people allowed into the matches. And I think the way that the results are going now in the UK is fantastic. The vaccination rollout has been hugely successful, and there's got to be a continuation from there. And it's not an intrusion on anybody's privacy when you have to show your identity or put it down on your phone and check up that you're okay, you've had your test and you're negative, you can go to the matches. I think it's safety and precaution for everybody. And I think to carry on the great work that they've done, it seems a logical solution to getting people back in, not just to football, but to all sports, and also to theatres, to shows, to restaurants, to pubs. And I don't see anything that being intrusive. I think it's really helpful to everybody. I would rather go and sit and watch a match knowing that the person next to me and round about me were all negative, the same as what I would be.
Sir Kenny, do you think we need some clear direction on this from the government? I looked at the news this morning. The leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, has been speaking about this and said ultimately that he felt that these kind of vaccine passports would somewhat go against the British instinct. Now, I'm not quite sure what he was trying to say here, but he's implying, and I think Boris Johnson has made similar comments, that there's some moral complexity around the issue of who has them, who gets them, and what it means for the young people, as Steve's pointed out, that may not get them in time to enjoy the season.
Oh, well, everybody can get them, as long as you have a smartphone, and also you can get a lanyard around your neck that does the same job. But there's nobody saying that it's going to be intrusive. There's no information comes off what you've given the V-Passport comes out anywhere else other than on their platform to see who and what and to check up whether they've had their tests or not. But I don't see how I don't see it as an intrusion. Obviously, people have different opinions, but I'm sure that the desire to get back into a half normal life to what we had before would be hugely important. But I think the paramount guideline and everything is going to be how how it reacts, how people react to it, and obviously what are the reactions to people going to the matches or going out or joining things or joining together, having a bit of social life. I think that's the most important thing. This isn't, it's not political. This is just for your life. It's a way of life. And I would hate to think that if I had COVID and I went along and I knew I had COVID and I sat next to somebody, there's a possibility that that guy's going to catch off of me and he's going to fall out. I mean, I think the people who have done the testing, who have been tested, would just go along. You don't need to have had the vaccination. It's just the test to prove that you're negative or positive, and you're able to turn up on that date for that game and have your seat.
So, Kenny, obviously there's this issue of the vaccine passports, which will determine perhaps who gets in to some of these venues, but there's also a very clear roadmap that's been laid out by the government, which also restricts the numbers inside venues. This is a disaster, as we know, for many clubs who may even have been struggling financially before we got to the pandemic. Do you think there needs to be some plan here to assist any sporting teams, whether it's football or other sports, that there should be some assistance to help them get through this period? Because I think a lot of clubs are going to find it very difficult to continue beyond this year without some help.
Yeah, I think the government will feel an obligation to try and help the lower level teams to survive financially. But it's been a financial blow for most people now, and it's just how you get through it and how best you get through it. And if there are financial limitations for people, then the government have put their hand in their pocket before. And if it's not costing the general public anything, you go and get your test, you get your report back, you go to the game. If you want to go to the game, that's your entry, as long as you have a ticket. But the government, as I say, it should never be political. It might be financial, and then they would need to sit down and discuss it with people more educated than myself about how to go about it. But I think it would be a fantastic reward if the government stepped forward to help the general public go out and try and get back a little bit to normal with the social life and the sporting life. And if they did that, it would be a great reward for the people who have sacrificed an awful lot, been through with the pandemic in the last year, and I think it's proved to be hugely successful now.
Lewis James, Sir Kenny says this shouldn't get political, but unfortunately our politicians can't resist the opportunity to, as far as they're concerned, put the ball in the net. Sir Keir Starmer saying he felt that this may be against the British instinct to hold such a document, and we've had the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, brand the use of COVID-19 passports as illiberal and unworkable. That's not helpful to the scheme that you're trying to roll out.
No, so the governments that we're working with around the world are looking to the private sector to lead the way to get out of this COVID-19 scenario. So what we've given all of the people who sign up to our passport, all their data, they decide who they should be with. So they can assign it to their health pass, a ticket, a boarding pass, or a restaurant voucher. So they're fully in control. I don't believe that it's immoral to have a passport, because you need to have a travel anyway. You still have a yellow card for other vaccinations.
Final quick question to Sir Kenny Dalglish. Sir Kenny, horrible season for Liverpool this year as well. Jurgen Klopp, of course, much loved amongst the fans, and I understand with the players as well. What's gone wrong this year for Liverpool?
No, it's a terrible year, but they're still in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and they've got a very good chance getting through on that. So the form hasn't been great, but they get too many injuries in the one position, and that's not an excuse. It's just a reason. You get 4 or 5 injuries in the one position, and it's a problem to try and sort it out. But by the way, they had a fantastic season last year. The people that are there are more or less the same people. that go to